Good morning, everyone. I'm already going to have a tougher time because I'm a bit sick. And so seeing Sam and Carol again opened up my naval passageways. And so, yeah, it's good to see you both again. Another reason why this might be tougher for me, and this is going to be a bit niche, is some of you know that I play tennis. I know, Mike. And so some of you might know that you should never date a tennis player. And how come? Some people seem to know already. But you don't want to date a tennis player because to them, love means nothing. And so here I am. And so now when I'm speaking, it's all intellectual. Nothing is going on. Right? So the rules of tennis, right, is love means zero. So then we go from 0 to 15 if we get a point. So then after 15, it goes to 30. So then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. So we go to 45. No, you actually do 40. And then both teams go to 40. Then it's actually deuce. So now it goes back down to 2. And so rules are weird and confusing in tennis. But the one that's more pertinent and one that a lot more people might know about just because it's in similar stuff like pickleball is that if the ball hits any part of the line, that is considered in. So if the ball is 99% out, it's in. Some of the oldies might remember at Wimbledon when John McEnroe had his outrage. It was like, you cannot be serious. The ball was on the line. Chalk flew up. And so something that you guys might not know is I've been playing tennis in high school and college. And for about 95% of these matches, there is no official. And so who makes the line call? I do. I make the line calls for my opponent, and my opponent makes the line calls for me. So, I know people, this has happened to me, that ball is out. Right, can you imagine, like if you're watching an NBA game or an NFL game, there's no officials. The players are going to call the fouls for themselves. How would that look? Or in like baseball, you got the players calling balls and strikes. And so you can imagine in tennis, a lot of matches are extremely contentious. And it's very blatant at times. Like when stuff like this happens, like it's pretty blatant, like, all right, like we know what's going on here. You know, there's like, I think there's some people that are tennis players that will tell you like, happens all the time, everyone does it. And I'm like, in kind of I think people are trying their best. And like the ball just comes so fast sometimes that it's like you want to see it out. And so you see it out. But stuff like this is pretty blatant when it happens. And so how come I'm telling you this? I've found that this situation, and maybe not a call like this, but a call like on the other photo where the ball is on the line, I view that situation very differently dependent on who my opponent is. And so if I'm playing with someone and it's a friend, or I'm playing someone that I know, or someone that I know is fair, or I'm kind of like he's a nice guy, it was probably a mistake. Or I could be wrong, which I know is it's science fiction, that I could have the call wrong, because I'm seeing it correctly. But it's possible, it's all right, they might have made a mistake, I might have seen something wrong, so it's kind of all right, I move on. Now, in tennis, we all talk about the people that have done stuff like this. There's people that have bad eyes. There's people that have a reputation. And so if I'm playing against someone like that, I'm going into the match and I'm almost looking for them to wrong me. I know they're going to do something, I know it's going to wrong me. And so that same exact situation, The ball might be on the line. I'm not as all benefit of the doubt as I was earlier. I'm pretty like they're cheating. Like they've done it before. They've done it to my friend. I've seen them do it to me. They're doing it. The ball could have been out, but it's like close enough where it's like, nah, it's them. It's not me. And it's a reputation they have, and it's me coming in, and I have already assigned guilt to this person. So my challenge is when I look at what Paul says in 1 Corinthians in 13, he says that love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Yeah, it seems that is a principle of love that I am not keeping with my perspective here. And really, this shows that my love is conditional. My love is conditional based on who the person is, based on who their reputation is. And I could be wrong. Someone has that reputation, and very rightfully so. But other times it was put on them unfairly. And so the issue is, despite that person's identity has become cemented in my lens, I view them through a lens that they're in the wrong and they're going to wrong me. That's the purpose of this sermon, is to look at like holding a record of wrongs and how that can affect how we see people, how our relationships can be viewed, and a path to forgiveness. And so when we talk like love keeping no record of wrongs, it's pretty self-explanatory. Like even in the Greek, like the word is a verb that is an accounting term that means to count, or to account, or to calculate. Well, within the church in Corinth, there is lots of issues that are going on. There's a lot of divisions that are happening. There's a lot of Christians that are taking each other to court in lawsuits. There is a lot of disorderly worship. And there is some that are getting drunk. And that's not actually the issue, that they're getting drunk. The issue is that during communion, they're getting drunk while other people are eating nothing or drinking nothing. And so they're getting it in excess while other people are left with nothing. So lots of conflict and lots of problems here. So when Paul is including this in his description of love, it's possible that because there's lots of wrongs going on between people, that they have a lot of ammo that they're using against each other. And especially if you're taking someone to court to build a case against them, you need to make sure that your case is rock solid, because you gotta convince people that, like, you're right. And so keeping record of wrongs, it's like you keep a mental list of offenses, you can revisit them later. It's like holding a grudge, using failures as ammo. And trying to not keep the record ties very closely to forgiveness. Like letting go of a record, it ties closely to forgiving people, or a concept. And that's not very natural. It's not natural for us at all. We can look at what Peter thinks about forgiving people with Jesus. Well, it says in Matthew 18:21-32, then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Now, truthfully, 7 times, that's pretty good. Like, you know the saying, like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And there's no 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. It just stops there. So really, 7, like, that's not bad. But Jesus is being a bit hyperbolic here when he's saying 77 times. It's not like he's saying, like, oh yeah, so on that 78th time, that's when you can go in. He's really saying, like, don't stop forgiving. Don't stop forgiving people. But this term, 77 times, that is vaguely familiar. There is one other place in the Bible where 77 is used. Does anyone know of that place? 77. It is the story of Cain and Abel. So this is in Genesis 4. And now before I go into this verse, this story is weird. Truthfully, a ton of Genesis is weird. Like, I don't even know if the garden is real or if it's meant to be a metaphor describing humans. So, like, I don't know how much of this story, literally viewing it, actually happens. But the principles and the theming of the story, regardless if the characters in them are real or not, or if it's meant to be allegory, is still very pertinent. And so in this story, what's going on is you have Cain and Abel that are brothers, and they both make an offering to God. So God looks with favor on Abel's offering, like hangs it up on his refrigerator, and then he looks at Cain's offering and is like, this won't do. That's really weird. It seems weird that God is showing favor to one and not to the other. And then there's another verse later on in the New Testament that said God loved Abel and hated Cain. It's like really weird. A lot of interpretations about that. We're not getting into it. So Cain was really angry and then kills Abel. So he takes revenge and kills Abel. So now in verse 15, God wants to protect Cain and wants to prevent people from taking revenge on Cain. It says, but the Lord said to him, not so, anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. You might have heard the mark of Cain. And God's intent here is to mark Cain so that this cycle of revenge and death stops. It's meant to, he's trying to end it there because people will want to avenge Abel and kill Cain. So this is meant to deter people from seeking revenge and going after Cain. That's the intent of what this mark is meant to do. Now the next verses in Genesis, and again, this is where it's weird with the story. Big time jump happens. It goes into a lot of genealogy stuff. And it gets to a guy named Lamech. And this guy named Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Again, it's kind of weird and it comes out of nowhere. But this guy, it comes across to me, as I'm reading it, that he is boasting about the vengeance that he took. It's like, if Cain got 7 times, I deserve 77 times. It's like the intent behind the mark of Cain was viewed by Lamech, it seems like, as an inspiration to look up to, not something to deter, or not to be like, oh yeah, vengeance is bad. And the hyperbole of 77 times, and this has been communicated or debated, that this is meant to forecast the farther and farther descent of humanity as we continue going through Genesis. How the violence and how the revenge is getting more and more significant, and humanity is plunging farther and farther into sin. And so instead of Lamech distancing himself from Cain, his story of vengeance was kind of viewed as inspiration. And this is the only time that 77 is used in the Bible. Now, how come Jesus is mentioning this? Because Peter is Jewish. There is very little question in my mind when Jesus is saying this. The Jewish audience or Jewish people know exactly what he's talking about. So how come Jesus would reference this story when he's talking about forgiveness? You see in the story that Cain was quick to seek revenge, Lamech was quick to seek revenge, and boasting in seeking revenge. Jesus' main point is that, yes, forgive unendlessly, but the same spirit that these characters had in seeking revenge, we need to mirror that spirit, but with forgiveness. We need to mirror the spirit to seek forgiveness. Jesus exemplified this when he went to the cross. He said in Luke 23, when they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, Father, Forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they divided his clothes by casting lots. So Jesus is forgiving the people that are asking, pleading God, forgive these people for literally killing him in that moment. Now, this is a disclaimer, because anything forgiveness related has so many layers to it. And I think this is one of the most challenging aspects of Christianity, is to forgive people. Forgive people that have done wrong. You know, like, there's a difference between being wronged and, like, the consequences associated with that are not very drastic. Like, in my earlier example, I'm talking about tennis, and, like, someone might have cheated me or might not have. In the big picture of things, it really does not matter. If somebody cuts you off in the highway, big picture, like, no one got hurt, it really does not matter that much. But there are wrongs where there's consequences that happen, and it's like those consequences, or being a victim of those consequences, changes who you are. And the consequences can be lasting, and it's not like it just goes away. And we have conflicting forces that make forgiveness significantly harder. So I think that going in and kind of being like a perspective of Jesus forgave people that were killing him. The people that I'm having trouble forgiving, they're doing something that's much lesser. And Jesus forgave, so why don't I just forgive? That's the wrong thought, because one, he's Jesus, I'm not. And we have forces that make it challenging to forgive. For one, conflict is really fun when I'm not involved in it. Celebrity drama, sport drama, friend circles, and maybe it's not the spirit or the scale of Genesis 4, but we eat up conflict. Movies and storylines, there's conflict. When I see a guy driving like a maniac and cutting everyone off and not having a front license plate, it fills me with satisfaction and joy when I see him 5 minutes later pulled over by a cop. You know, there is some gratification or spirits. Like, we like seeing what people get what they deserve. We enjoy that to some extent. You know, our mainstream media, I believe, has a bias towards creating conflict. They spin certain stories. Maybe they tell one side of a story or a different side of a story. I think their bias is cause conflict. Both parties do it. Republicans do it. Democrats do it. One side seems to be doing it more because they're the ones in charge. Put the other party in charge, they're going to do it too. It's just different. The nature is stirring up conflict because people eat that up. Another thing that makes it really difficult is that if you have consequences that are lasting, anything that smells, looks, or feels like the thing that you experienced will probably be a trigger in some way. This is an emotional response, and it's a trauma response, and it's very normal, and it makes sense. It's like your body is trying to protect itself from the wrong that someone did to you or the thing that happened. And so in that, it's like you're reliving what happened again and having to face it again. So a path to forgiveness can be challenging because it was hard to face those feelings the first time, and now I got to face them again and again and again. And that is not satisfying. That's not fun. I do want to preface that there is a level of, when it's keeping record of wrongs, that we should be responsible for some of the wrongs that we keep. You know, Proverbs says that a prudent man overlooks an insult. I think that there's some wrongs that really our pride holds on to that wrong, and we kind of keep a record of it, and it's really not that big a deal. I'm not going to be in the position to say what's a big deal and what's not a big deal. Like, I don't know that. I don't know, and that's different for everyone. But if we're honest with ourselves, there's some things that we keep where really it's our pride. We can let go. But there's other things that are significantly more traumatic and significantly more damaging and challenging. And so when I look at Jesus, I look at his example, to me, I've seen it and I see it as like I have such a desperation for him because I'm not that. Like there's people that I'm still wrestling with or situations I'm wrestling with trying to forgive. And so to see Jesus forgive people, and a guy, in, like the Bible says, he's fully flesh. He was tempted in every way. Forgive people that were actively doing wrong to him. It almost feels like inspirational and like feels like a desire and like a desperation for him because it's like, wow, like that's, like I want that. Like I want to be able to forgive. Like I want to forgive. I want to move on from certain things. And there is emotional responses that make that really difficult for me to do that. And what's really annoying is these emotional responses are not logical at all, some of them. Like some of them is like, I know exactly why I'm feeling this way. I know the exact feeling, and it makes absolutely no sense. And I know that I'm seeing this situation completely unfairly. I know I'm seeing this situation not totally accurately, but it feels just like this where I was justified, so now these feelings are still there. So it's frustrating because there's a disconnect between my emotional and then my logical. It's kind of like, again, if it feels like it, it's like the thing. It's like, it feels like that thing is happening. It might not be happening. It might be happening, but it feels like it. So there's two paths that we can go on with this. And path is very specific. It's a very path. It's not, forgiveness is not a moment. There's a process to it. So there's a path of forgiveness, and there's a path of anything else, like bitterness. It can be keeping score. It can be vengeance. And certainly the path of vengeance is definitely at least in my view, it's been the easier path to be on and the more natural path to be on. There's a control that I feel. There's a protection to feel. And the challenge is at times when recording someone's wrongs, we also can commit wrong. And one of these examples of tennis players, I had a match a little while ago, and it was chippy, and it was a bit contentious. And my opponent was doing things that I perceived as disrespectful. And that's the key word, perceived. I perceived it this way. And so later, one of my teammates was going to play him at a later date. And so I had opened up to him and told him about my experience with him. And I called him a jerk, my opponent. I called him a jerk. After my friend had played him, my friend came to the same conclusion, yeah, you're right. That guy was such a jerk. I'm like, I know, right? Unbelievable. Later on, I had another teammate play him, and I was there, so I saw this, but my opponent that I previously had issues with was really kind and respectful. This does not fit my narrative. And so I have thought, was I unfair in how I viewed him? I don't know, his grandmother could have died that day. He could have had a really awful medical diagnosis. I don't know what's going on in people's lives. Something could have been going on. And then, did I influence my friend's conclusion by telling my friend about him beforehand? And so, in that match as well, I didn't mention this. In that match, he called me a cheater in that match. He said that I was cheating. And so he took a shot at me. So now naturally, I'm taking a shot at his reputation. And so it's not quite I think revenge maybe could be thought of as really taking action or being a bit more aggressive. But this was revenge. Like I was taking revenge by choosing to gossip and choosing to spread whatever or my experience. It's one thing if I let my friend play him and then he came to that conclusion and then he was like telling me about it. I'm like, yeah, I also had some interactions with him too that weren't great, but you don't know what's going on with people. And I could have been graceful, but no, I didn't choose to do that. And there was a level of I enjoyed talking to him about it because I feel justified. I'm like, oh, he did that to you? He did that to you? He couldn't have done that to you. No way. And it's like, I feel justified like having someone on my side. No, but I had perceived wrong, and so then I acted on that. Now, there's a quote, and I don't know who this quote is attributed to, but it's a popular quote that I've heard, and it says that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. The purpose of this quote is by refusing to forgive someone, you're really punishing yourself. You think you're punishing them, but it's yourself. You're the one that's carrying bitterness. You're the one that's replaying the offense. You're the one that feels angry and pain over and over. You're the one that's building the walls emotionally in relationships. And you're the one that stays emotionally or spiritually stuck. The other person might have moved on and not realized it. And part of the root of what caused all of this in the beginning is there is absolutely still stuff that happened when I was younger in high school where people blatantly cheated against me that I just haven't really worked through or dealt with. And I have to continue facing it over and over again in tennis. And by not dealing with it, I've seen this person unfairly in a different lens. And honestly, I acted in the wrong, and I don't feel particularly great about it. I wouldn't want people to talk about me like I talked about this person, particularly because my mom's not here. I've cheated before. I've cheated, I can say intentionally twice. But when I cheated, I was like, I had reasons for it when I did it. I've been called a cheater far more than twice, but I know internally I did it twice. If you talk to someone else, they'd probably say that I did it more than that. And so it's like, I've committed wrong. I've done wrong. I'm definitely on someone else's wrong list. And then outside of tennis, I've said some really dumb things. I've done some really dumb things. I've upset people and I've hurt people, and I would want how people view me to be similar to how I would want to view someone else. I want to forgive someone, and I'd want them to pay that same respect to me. And it's the greatest command of this is the first and greatest command, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. I want people to forgive me. And so if that's the case, I need to pay that same respect and forgive others. And forgiveness is a much harder path to be on. It's not just letting someone off the hook. There's a saying forgive but don't forget. And I like that because something happened, you've changed. You've just changed. The consequences could be so extreme that it's not like forgiveness is going back to what it was before the offense. That's not, or things in a relationship will be back exactly like it is. In some cases, that might not be the case. Now, a lot of times, boundaries might need to be set up in an effort to protect yourself, because forgiveness gets eventually to a place of trust, and you might not be there yet, where it's I want to love you. I'm not there yet. I need some time here. I need some time to grow. And it doesn't sound great to be oh yeah, I don't want to love you, because obviously that's against what the Bible is saying, to love your neighbor, but it could be so strong. There's certain stuff I'm I'm just not there yet. I just need some boundaries. Because, like, I'm seeing something as completely wrong or invalid. I'm getting triggered. I need some time. And then, like, the goal would be to break some of these down and get back to love and get back to loving again. You know, you can start a process of being on a path of forgiveness of, like, God, I want to love again. God, I want to forgive. I want to. You know, in the midst of something, and this is where it's inspiring for Jesus, like, it's really difficult to envision yourself, like, arrived when you're in the moment. Like, it's hard to envision, like, having the capacity to be able to forgive things or be able to forgive the certain things because you're in the moment. And that's where it takes courage to be on a path of forgiveness. If you're reliving an event or reliving a trauma, you have to deal with all of those emotions again. You know, one of the best pieces of advice I got from a counselor was feel the emotions, just feel it. You know, and even the Bible, it says in Ephesians 4, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And so it's an acknowledgement of, like, yeah, anger is it's an emotion, you're going to feel it. And emotions aren't good, and emotions aren't bad. They're just indicators. Like, they're an indicator that something is going on or something is wrong. And the point of the scripture is, like, in your anger or in whatever emotion, deal with it. Don't sin with it. Don't let it build up and be in your sin. When you feel emotions, when you allow yourself to feel it, typically those emotions, my experience, it helps with those festering away, especially with anger. Now, again, be wise with anger. It's very easy to sin in anger. Hence why he's including it in the verse. But feeling the emotion helps tremendously on a path of being forgiven. It can be even saying, like what I've done, as I've just said to God in prayer, like, God, I'm angry. Like, I'm just angry. I don't know why, but I'm angry about something. And I want to be on the path, but the path, it's slower and the path is harder. But the path is more freeing. The path is more freeing to be on, to let go of whatever wrongs, or let go of a record of wrongs that we keep. I'm not going to be owned by what had happened to me. I'm not going to be owned by, or at least, or rather, I'm not going to continue to be owned by what had happened. I'm not going to continue to be owned or be shaped by the people who might have hurt me. I want to be shaped by Jesus. I want to be shaped by grace. That's what I want to continue to be shaped by in the future. So have you been keeping score with someone? Are there specific wrongs that it's easier for you to keep score about and easier wrongs to let go of? How does this influence the love that we show other people? Are we going into situations and expecting to be wronged? You know, love does not keep a record of wrongs, but it also does not mean just forget about everything. But it means that forgiveness, a path of forgiveness, is stopping that event that might have shaped you in the event, not letting it continue to shape you. I want to be shaped by showing grace. I want to be shaped by grace. Grace that Jesus showed when he went to the cross and pleaded for the people that were crucifying him to be forgiven. Not be shaped by revenge or bitterness. So what path are you walking on, and what path do you want to walk on? The path of forgiveness is harder, but it's more freeing. And if that's not a path that you're on, what does the first step look like? And if you are on that path, what does the next step look like? And the nice thing about our community and our church is like we're all in it together, and like we all interact with human beings. So like we all deal with a ton of wrong that goes on. And we are all walking on a path together. And Jesus came to earth fully flesh, fully man. He was tempted in every way. And he did that, and he walked the path of forgiveness first so that no one would have to walk it alone. So let's work towards, and that's the key phrase, is work towards. It's a process, it's a path. Loving and forgiving people like how Jesus loved and had forgiven first.